For my class leadership, I was assigned chapters 5 and 6 from Bailey and Birch, Ethics for Behavior Analysts. And chapter 5 is Everyday Ethical Challenges for Average Citizens and Behavior Analysts. This chapter basically outlines the change in rules when an individual decides to become a behavior analyst. When they go into grad school, they have to learn the different rules that apply for them now. So, personal ethics development. Over the course of a person's childhood, their own set of ethics can be considered a bit inconsistent. For example, a teenager who does not get caught cheating on a test will believe the rule is don't get caught instead of don't cheat. Another example would be my 5-year-old nephew believed that instead of never saying bad words, it would be okay if no one heard him say them. Personal ethics are considered to be a set of loosely formed rules, while in the world of a behavior analyst, professional ethics are much stricter. This really goes to show just how the change can come about when you enter the professional world. Definitely as a child, the don't get caught rule was a big part of my life, as I'm sure it was anyone else's. But when you're going into the professional world, especially in behavior analysis, that is absolutely not the rule. The rule is not don't get caught. All rules must be followed as strict as possible. So one of the topics in the chapter was favors. It is possible that as a behavior analyst working in someone's home for a few days a week, the parents you may work for may begin to ask you for favors. It is important to remember that you are not a private citizen in their home and that the rules are a bit different for you. Performing favors for a family that you work for is inappropriate and something that you should avoid at all costs. I currently work for a family now who actually asked me to watch one of their younger children, a child that is not receiving services, and I had to explain to them that while I'm there in their home for session that I am strictly there for the child that is receiving the services. Besides the favors thing, this also brings up some multiple relationships, which I think I'm going to talk about a little later. But yeah, so it's definitely something that the lines can be blurred pretty easily, as said here, when you're in someone's home working intimately with their child, more than one day a week. The next topic is gossip. As a private citizen, there's a good chance that you are engaging in gossip more than you know. Most gossip is believed to be harmless and entertaining, so why not participate? As a professional, parents may ask about other clients, but revealing that information would be a serious ethical breach. So gossiping is incredibly easy to do, no matter who you are, where you are. We gossip nonstop, more than we even know. I have personally challenged myself to acknowledge more when I am gossiping, and I do it so often. And sometimes when I'm speaking to parents, also I have to catch myself because I'll find them giving information or asking questions, like I said, about other clients, or even like peers at school, things like that, asking, telling stories, asking so-called advice, and it's all just boils down to being gossip, which is unprofessional and inappropriate and just all around a bad idea when you're working in the field. Appreciation. As a behavior analyst, you come into families' homes and you change their lives. It is normal that when doing this, parents would want to show you how much they appreciate your service. Accepting gifts of any kind from a family is considered unethical and inappropriate. If the gift is given, it creates a dual role relationship where the behavior analyst is expected to give a gift back. So, again, another personal example of this, actually yesterday, one of my clients told me about how she bought a birthday gift for her teacher, and then asked me when my birthday was so she could buy me a birthday gift. And it was pretty easy to redirect that and just be like, no, you don't have to buy me a gift, anything like that. But sometimes it gets a little more difficult when parents are offering you things, or, when you come in and ask if you want some water, come sit down for dinner with us, or thank you so much, and, stuff like that. Like when I worked at I was a camp counselor for a while, and at the end of the summer or school year breaks, whatever, Parents always give you gift cards, little gifts, things like that. But obviously, in this particular professional world, the roles are very different. Advice. Private citizens often ask each other for advice based on what type of experience and knowledge a person has. As a behavior analyst, people will most likely ask you for your advice on other children who they may think need your services. Commenting on someone who is not your client is an ethical violation. So this one is pretty cut and clear. The only advice that you should ever be giving would be for your own particular clients, and it also depends on your role. So me currently as an RBT now, if a parent is asking advice on some things that we aren't already implementing, that's not something that I would answer. That's not a question I would answer. I always direct them to my VCBA. If they're asking me advice on something that they should already have learned, or that I know that we've been working on, then obviously that's okay to give out, but never about anything that hasn't already been put in place by my supervisor. Never about other kids, even children in the home. Only clients that you are directly providing services to. Responsibility. Some parents do not take responsibility for some actions that may influence their child's behavior. Being someone who worked in the home and focusing on a child's behavior, it is important to understand that this may be the case with some parents. When this issue arises, you must make sure that you are taking the necessary steps to ensure that parents follow through with consequences when you're not around. So this, in my current professional world as an RBT, is something that I was not prepared for. So obviously when a parent has a child going through ABA services, they have parent training. And then my role as an RBT, once I go into the home and when I'm dealing with their child, is to also watch the parents. Like when we track, we also track parent goals. Just to, like I said, make sure that they're going through the consequences, they're implementing all the steps correctly for the care of their child, because it definitely can influence their child's behavior, especially if a parent is, by not taking responsibility, reinforcing some sort of aversive behaviors. So the next chapter 6 is Code 1, which is responsible conduct of behavior analysts. So Code 1, behavior analysts maintain high standards of behavior of the profession. It is important that behavior analysts uphold the highest standards at all times, both while working and not. The work we do as behavior analysts can be a very private matter, and we must uphold the integrity of all of our clients at all times. So the ethics case in the book is, as states, Katie is a single mother of a child with autism who has visited several different behavior analytics service providers before deciding on a particular service provider. A few weeks after making this decision about which behavior analyst would be selected to provide services, Katie was at a local fair and saw Marilyn, one of the service providers she had interviewed, but ultimately decided not to use. Marilyn looked up and greeted Katie loudly, then exclaimed, "Katie, what happened? I thought when you visited my autism clinic we had a deal. Why didn't you choose me?" Katie felt uncomfortable about the exchange, especially because she had not mentioned to people in her community that her child had autism. She muttered something about finances, then hurried out of the fair. So when you're immediately reading this case, you kind of wonder, like, why would Marilyn ever say that out loud like that? And that just goes back to working as a behavior analyst is a very private matter. So not everyone wants the public world to know what's happening in their home, and they trust you to understand that, and to obviously keep the details of your professional relationship private. Code 1.01 is reliance based on scientific knowledge. So behavior analysts are expected to make science their core basis behind all actions within the field. As behavior analysts, we must rely on scientific evidence, specifically single subject design studies, to effectively employ interventions for our clients. This code often reminds me of like fad treatments, treatments that don't have a lot of scientific evidence, like the special diets and things like that that parents often, well, not often, but that parents that's out there. So the ethical case in the book for this is Anthony is a BCBA who works in the home of a child whose parents strongly believe in FC, or facilitated communication. Anthony uses a typing machine and physical prompting to guide a child who is in 3rd grade and nonverbal to generate language-related responses. Anthony justifies his work by saying, "I don't look at the screen." BCBA at the school has tested the student and demonstrated that he is clearly prompt-dependent and produces no intelligible responses on the device on his own. Should this BCBA be reported to the board? So I actually just did my lit review on facilitated communication, and just basically the overall views in the science world about it, and it seems pretty divided. Like, people are either still trying to figure out ways to make this seem effective, or they just understand that facilitated communication is not an effective intervention. Individuals that are using this are often influenced by the facilitators or the BCBAs or whatever that is using them, so they're not quite learning anything from this. They're not gaining any communication skills or anything like that. So yes, I think he should have been reported to the board, and that's also what it says in the book, that he's not relying on scientific evidence to guide his practice, therefore should be reported to the board, since the BCBA at the school has already tried to dissuade him from supporting facilitated communication. Code 1.02, boundaries of competence. Essentially, all behavior analysts must work within their means. We must understand the limits of our knowledge, and when we want to expand our services, we must take the necessary steps to properly learn and employ this new knowledge. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. Just stay within your means. Like, stay in your lane. Like, if you know, everyone knows what they know, and everyone knows what they can implement and how they can do their job to the best of their ability. I think that's even more important when you're working with such a vulnerable population, children and families. Like, they rely on you to always be effective. You can't be effective if you don't have the proper knowledge for that one. Code 1.03, maintaining competence through professional development. So behavior analysts have the responsibility to stay up to date in their areas of practice. Staying current on new studies, attending conferences, and just overall staying in the loop is expected of all behavior analysts. So this kind of goes back to the last one as well. Everyone always has to keep learning. My dad always says, if you're not learning, you're dead. It's a little dramatic, but that's my dad. So you can't provide effective services to your clients if you're not staying up to date. That's like a doctor who doesn't continue to learn of the new technology on how to better save his patients. So yeah. Code 1.04, integrity. Behavior analysts... Okay, I think that's what to say must. Behavior analysts must be lawful, truthful, and honest, as well as create an environment that promotes such behavior. We should always strive to follow through with obligations and commitments and conform to all ethical codes. So this one is also, I think most ethical codes are pretty self-explanatory. It's basically to be the best person you can be. So the ethical case for this in the book is, while consulting with a teacher at a local school, I was asked to conduct an observation of a child in his classroom. When I inquired about billing, I was told to bill under a different client name in the same classroom for a child whom I was not rendering services. I was told that the other client's insurance provides him with unlimited hours. I stated that I would not bill for a client whom I was not providing service, as that would not only be unethical but also illegal. The policy of this company is to first see how many hours the client's insurance will pay for, then bill the maximum amount of time for that client, regardless of client's needs. The response to this case in the book is, I just lost the page. This is clearly a case of insurance fraud. The agency is insulating itself from responsibility by having behavior analysts manipulate the paperwork. Reporting this incident to the insurance company in writing would seem to be a required response under Code 1.04. Leaving the company could follow shortly thereafter. So I obviously, of course, agree with the book. I think that's a company that I would not want to continue to work for. Most things, I mean, just basically lawful, truthful, and honest. There's no way around that. Code 1.05, professional and scientific relationships. Behavior analysts must only provide services in the appropriate setting. We must obtain the proper training when working with a family of different background to ensure that our service is competent. Behavior analysts must never engage in discriminatory behavior. So the case in the book for this one is, I work as a consulting BCBA and I provide home-based services for a school district. Recently, it has been reported to me by clients and colleagues that the school's district BCBA has a serious drug problem. I interact with him rarely and do not have any evidence of this, though I'm concerned that illicit drug use or perceived drug use by consumers and colleagues is a violation of our ethical guidelines, and that it is one, in violation of state laws, and two, does not represent our field well. What's the best way for me to proceed, given I don't interact with this individual a great deal? That is, how do I proceed given that I've only heard rumors? So rumors is also something that I think may be an issue for any behavior analyst. It kind of goes back to like the gossip section of chapter 5, because rumors just happen to start sometimes. Like things get misinterpreted. It's like playing a game of telephone and then suddenly, someone's a murderer or something like that. So the answer to this one is that our code does not allow for the reporting of secondhand information. Only those who have witnessed the illicit use of drugs can make the call. The most appropriate action that you can take is to go to those who have reported this to you and encourage them to first approach the person directly and see how he responds. This may be just the push he needs to get help. However, if he does not respond appropriately or does not provide an acceptable explanation, it may be appropriate for you to report this to the proper authorities, including the board. So that kind of goes back to being like truthful and honest and all that. Like you always want to make sure that you have like accurate information before reporting anything or before, confronting anyone. So definitely talking to the people you heard the rumor from first, and then moving forward from there would be the best way to go about something like this. Code 1.06, multiple relationships and conflicts of interest. Basically, just avoid. As a behavior analyst, we must understand that the harmful effect that multiple relationships may have. And if multiple relationships arise, we must take the proper steps to solve the issue. So a lot of typos, and I'm very sorry. So that kind of goes back to my previous story where I had a family who wanted me to watch their younger child who I was not providing services to. That would create a multiple relationship, even if they weren't paying me to watch their child, which would also make it a favor. So either way, very wrong. This includes even being Facebook friends with your clients and posting information back and forth, meeting up with clients outside of session, being friends, dating. Any of that is going to cause some sort of conflict of interest. It's only a multiple relationship, and it can definitely cause problems in the future. I think always the best way to go about this, there are a few, there's a scenario in the book, but it's pretty much the same thing, that you want to stick to what you're there to do. So as a behavior analyst, you are there to provide services to a child that's been diagnosed with autism, and that is all that you should be doing. That should be the main focus, and any other relationship is just likely to get in the way of that. Code 1.07 is exploitative relationships. Behavior analysts should not exploit anyone that they may have authority over. Behavior analysts should not engage in sexual relationships with anyone they work with in the field, which may lead to exploitation or impaired judgment. This kind of also relates back to the multiple relationships, but so I will read the case in here. It's entitled The Manipulative BCBA, so I guess it's more so the first point here. I work at a center where none of the program coordinators who do behavioral treatments are BCBAs or BCABAs. Nonetheless, they are required to send their paperwork to a BCBA. The BCBA has never seen any clients except for an hour or so at intake, knows nothing about their history or behaviors, and never reviews what the program manager's reports. However, the BCBA signs the forms as though he did the work. I feel this BCBA is taking advantage of us since we do all the work, receive no supervision, and he takes all the credit. This just doesn't seem fair. So the problem with this one is that this head BCBA that all the paperwork is being sent to has all of the authority over everyone under him. He'd it appears that basically no work can get done without this type head BCBA, and I'm sure he understands that. So the answer that's in the book says this BCBA is acting unethically, not engaging in proper oversight of the individuals who are doing the ABA work. This can be reported to the BCBA. It also refers to another code, so that definitely should be reported no matter what. And then the second point here, I don't think I need to read the ethical case in the book for this one, because that also goes back to multiple relationships, as well as this just has to seem like an overall bad idea. Like, I can't see anyone entering a sexual relationship and thinking that there's no possibility that it's gonna go bad. So yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to send in my presentation this way, and I hope you have a good day.